Almost 2,000 objects have gone missing from the British Museum. Here's the unlikely story of the antiques dealer who uncovered it all. Hi there, everyone. It's Jeff, and it's time for English once more, right? Here we go with Plain English lesson number 639. JR is the producer. He has uploaded the full content of today's lesson to plainenglish.com/639. Today, we're talking about a caper at the museum, a mysterious crime. Almost 2,000 objects have disappeared from the warehouses at the British Museum, and it caused a tremendous scandal because they think the person responsible was a curator at the museum. That's the first half, the story. In the second half of today's lesson, I'm going to show you how to use the expression go missing. So that's what we have for you today. Let's get started. The British Museum in London is the third most visited museum in the world, and it's one of the most highly regarded museums in the world, with over 8 million artifacts tracing the history of humanity and culture. But you can't see the museum's full collection. Only about 80,000 objects, just 1%, are on display at any given time. The rest are in storage at the museum building, in warehouses in another part of London, or on loan to other institutions. You might think that every piece owned by the museum has an ID number, a description, several photographs, preservation instructions, and a written history. If you think that, you would be wrong. In many cases, items in the museum's collection are not fully described and photographed. Some items are grouped together with hundreds of others as just one record in the museum's database. To be fair, some items probably shouldn't be individually cataloged. If there are thousands of fragments of a sculpture, does each fragment need its own record in the database? But the museum estimates that there are still over 1 million unique items that have not been indexed and cataloged. And that matters because anything that's not cataloged is easier to lose or to steal. One expert summed it up this way: a lot of items in the museum's collection have been lying around for over 200 years without any registration system. So who would even notice if they went missing? Well, about 2,000 items did go missing, and nobody at the museum noticed. Most of the missing items were gems, semi-precious stones, jewelry, and glass items. The only person who noticed was a private antiquities dealer from Denmark named Itai Gradel. He specializes in Greek and Roman gems. Gradel is a dealer. His job, his profession, is to buy and sell valuable items legally in the private market, and he started seeing gems on eBay, the online auction site. The seller said they were a couple of 100 years old, but Gradle recognized them. They were Roman gems from the 2nd century AD. In other words, they were far more valuable than the seller thought. Gradle bought his first gem for £15, or less than $20. He sold it to a collector and made thousands of pounds in profit on the trade. He thought he had just gotten lucky. Gradle kept seeing items for sale below their true value. He kept buying and selling, as a dealer does, making a nice profit. One day, he worked up the courage to ask the seller how he had acquired the pieces. The seller said he inherited the items from his late grandfather, and he was just now getting rid of them. But something didn't make sense to Gradle. Gradle has a good memory, and he recognized one of the items on eBay. He thought he had seen it in the British Museum's collection. So he investigated a little more, and that's when he discovered that the seller's PayPal account was in the name of a curator at the British Museum. In 2020, he reported this to the staff at the British Museum. He didn't get much response, so he kept trying to get people's attention. In his eyes, a fraud was being committed, and the museum needed to investigate. Finally, the staff said they had investigated, but they had closed the matter. The curator, the one Gradle thought was selling items from the collection, he was still working for the museum. Gradle thought it was a cover-up, so he went directly to the museum's board of trustees. And that's when he started to get results. The curator was fired. The director of the museum was forced to resign. The museum even apologized to Gradle for ignoring his warnings for so long. And the museum had to publicly admit that it had lost about 2,000 items over the course of many years. The museum's interim director was called to testify in the House of Commons, forced to explain how the nation's pre-eminent museum had been so careless. But the damage is done. The museum has gotten only about 350 items back, and it will be impossible to recover many of the others. The museum has announced a campaign to document and catalog another 1.3 million items in its collection. The effort will cost about £10 million and will take years. Hats off to the dealer who uncovered it all. He could have just reported it and let it go, but he spent his own time, his own effort investigating. What I don't understand is why the curator would have done this, if in fact he did. It can't be for the money. The seller was getting 15 pounds an item? That's less than $20. So imagine that over a period of decades, he sells 2,000 items. He would make a total of $40,000 over many years and risk his job and risk going to jail? So he could not have been doing this for the money. It was probably the power. It was probably the thrill of getting away with it. Nobody has been arrested. Nobody charged with a crime. The curator was fired, but he hasn't been arrested or charged. Go missing. When something goes missing, it disappears or becomes lost. And when we use go missing, we imply that there's a little mystery involved. Go is a verb, so it needs a subject. And the subject, the thing doing the action, is the lost item. So if you say, my keys went missing, it means my keys are lost. I can't find my keys. You can use go missing with things that are small, not very important, and you can use it with things that are important. Let's start small. I think my keys went missing. That simply means I think I have lost my keys. To say something went missing is a way to deflect blame a little bit. I lost my keys. If you say that, you put the blame squarely on yourself. I lost my keys. But if you say, my keys seem to have gone missing, it adds a little mystery to the situation. What happened to them? I don't know. It's not my fault. They went missing. A common way to say this is to say something seems to have gone missing. This is a way of saying you don't know what happened to something. It's lost. You're not putting the blame on anyone. So if you comment to your spouse, the keys seem to have gone missing, that's a way of saying, I didn't lose the keys. I'm not accusing you of losing the keys. I'm just observing that they are lost. The keys seem to have gone missing. So that's the way to use it with something small. Sometimes, though, you can use go missing to imply that something dishonest has happened, usually with something more valuable. Imagine that you rode your bicycle to work. You parked it outside the office and you locked it up. You went out for lunch at 1 o'clock. You saw your bike right where you left it. But when you left the office at 6 o'clock, the bike was gone. You might talk to the security guard or file a police report. They might ask you, what time did your bike go missing? And you might answer, it went missing sometime between 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock. It went missing here is a way of implying that something bad happened without saying it directly. Probably someone stole it. We don't know for sure. If you say it went missing, there's a feeling of mystery. What happened? Did someone take it by mistake? That's unlikely if you locked it. But did you remember to lock it? Maybe you can't be 100% sure. So if you say, my bike went missing, you're not quite saying that someone stole it, but you're implying it. Hundreds, maybe thousands of items from the British Museum went missing. The museum suspects, highly suspects, that a former curator stole the items and sold them on eBay. But this has not been proven. There was no trial. There was no evidence on camera. There's good reason to think these items were stolen, but a safer thing to say is thousands of items went missing over the years. That means maybe they were stolen. Probably they were stolen. But maybe some were lost. Maybe some were just discarded accidentally, but they are not where they should be. They should be in the warehouse, but they are not. They went missing is a great way of saying they are lost under mysterious circumstances. Finally, you can use go missing for people and pets. How many times have you heard a story like this? Our cat went missing 5 days ago and just turned up on our doorstep tonight, as if nothing had happened. The cat went missing 5 days ago. That means the cat disappeared. The cat didn't tell you where he was going, and you didn't see him leave. But he's usually home at night, and for 5 nights he wasn't. He went missing 5 days ago. You might say he went missing on Sunday night, but came back on Friday. Likewise with people, if someone has disappeared, you might file a report with the police. The police might come to your house and ask, what time did she go missing? That means, approximately when do you think she disappeared? That's all for us here at Plain English. I hope you enjoyed today's story. I hope you learned some new words. And as always, if you're a Plus member, then you can practice using go missing. Just go onto the transcript of the expression and find the practice area. Write your own example using go missing, and I will personally reply with some feedback. And that way, you know you're using it right. Now, if you're not yet a Plus member, you're welcome to join us at plainenglish.com/plus, Plus. We'll be back next week with 2 new episodes. See you then.